very great knowledge sharing session and would be of great benefit to all of you. So looking forward to the questions. Let's have it come in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for being here today. We really honor your invitation and appreciate you. So we'll start personally. And many young architects believe successful profession moves flawlessly through the career. So I would like to begin with a question. What is the biggest mistake you have made in your career or life journey? And what should we avoid as young architects?
Sorry, just if I take the questions, just give me a 2 minutes break. I need to attend to something urgently. Just give me 2 minutes and I'll be back.
Okay, that's fine, sir. Okay. So while we wait, I would love if we could introduce ourselves here in the call. Maybe our names, so we can get to know each other while we wait for Kelechi. But I'll go first. My name is Osarume Cole, and I am currently doing my master's program in University of Lagos. I finished my bachelor's degree in University of Benin. Yeah, thank you. Okay, on the chat, Glory Onaomi sent a message. Is in MS2 Covenant University. Nice to meet you, Mr. Glory.
All right, I'm back.
Okay, sir. So I will just repeat the question. So, like I was saying initially, that many young architects believe professionals move flawlessly through their careers. And the question is, what is the biggest mistake you have made in your career or your life journey? And how should we, as young architects, avoid it?
All right. My biggest mistake. Well, what comes to my mind immediately as a mistake? Well, honestly, I'm not sure if I'll call it a mistake, but maybe I would say something I probably would do differently if I could go back in time. Thankfully, I can't think of something I would say was extremely costly in my journey, right? But I can think of something I can say, at least one or two things I can say. If I could go back in time, I'll do it differently. And one of them was not coming to Lagos earlier. Yeah, not coming to Lagos earlier. I grew up in Owerri. Owerri is a small, relatively small. There's a capital of Lagos. It's a quiet, small, relatively small town as compared to Lagos, and it's if you grew up in a small town, you kind of enjoy the peacefulness, the calmness, the quietness that comes with towns like that. So I grew up in that kind of environment, quiet, nice, all of that. Went to school in Enugu, which was a bigger, busier town, but still kind of calm and quiet. So I visited Lagos a couple of times for holiday and visiting family and all of that. But I didn't really like Lagos because Lagos was crowded, traffic, and all of that. So when I was graduating and thinking of where to start my career, I wanted to start my career. I knew I didn't want to continue nowhere because I knew that the opportunities that were limited. So I wanted to go to a bigger city where there was more opportunity for architectural practice. And my thoughts were I should go to a bigger city like, and the options were Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. Okay, these were my options. Port Harcourt was close to home, so I kind of liked that. Abuja was also seemed like a great opportunity, but closer. But I had family there. Then there was Lagos. So Lagos was not. I didn't want to come to Lagos. I didn't want to do that traffic. So I opted for Abuja eventually, and so I spent the first, at least post NYSC. Post NYSC, I spent the first year and a half almost in Abuja. But I really wanted to start practice in a firm that is well established. I knew I wanted to have opportunity for mentorship, I mean, to be mentored and trained. And so I started in Abuja, and at the time, Abuja did not really offer me the kind of firm I wanted to work in didn't seem to be available in Abuja, at least at that time. I'm talking about 2005, right? So but I eventually started something in Abuja. I found something, I started working there. I found some interior design firm, started working there. Spent like 9 months. I knew I wasn't really developing. So I then found some other construction company, did like another 6 months or so. And then at some point I just said, look, if you really want to get this thing you're looking for, this kind of experience you're looking for, if you really want to get the kind of experience, somebody says my voice is low. Is that the same experience for everyone? Was I my voice low for you?
Well, I can hear you perfectly from my head.
Okay. Okay, so maybe the person who's complaining might need to increase his volume. And so eventually I came to terms with the fact that the kind of experience I needed to find was available in Lagos. So I came to Lagos, and that was when I joined ATO. And I got to realize why Lagos has the traffic it does. I just realized that the opportunities are more concentrated in Lagos, which is why there are a lot of people here looking for those opportunities. And so I thought, in my view, as far as Nigeria is concerned, I still think that Lagos is the best place to start your career. But I also know that people can start in other reasons, right? But I think Lagos has the most opportunities. The landscape has changed today, so it may not exactly be for me like it is. It may not be for you like it was for me then. I mean, other cities have also, tried to develop as well. So there might now be more opportunities in other towns. But if I could go back in time, I maybe would have come to Lagos a year earlier, because it would have given me an earlier start in my journey, and maybe I would have done my NIA exams earlier and so on and so forth. But like I said, I don't think it cost me too much. I don't think I lost too much. But if I could go back in time, maybe that's one thing I'll change.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir, for wonderful answer. So it's actually a very great answer, because apparently I was also staying in Abuja before I came to Lagos, and yeah. So yeah.
That's why you're laughing. Yeah, I said it.
So the next question is, what is the proper what for an architecture student who just finished school? What would be the next step to take?
For a student who just finished school, I put on my headphones now. I put on my headphones now so that I can still get the conversational volume, and hopefully, if anybody's not hearing me, well, can hear me better. What would be the first step for fresh graduate to take?
Yeah, the next step.
Okay, I think the first step is go and pay your dues, and by that I mean go and sit down somewhere and learn. You would find out that what school gives you, school just gives you like a foundation. Part of the foundation, you still need to build. You still need to deepen that foundation, learning under somebody. I would say, if you want to be in consulting, or at least you want a foundation, you want a practice that has a strong base, at least a strong base in foundation in consulting. Find a firm, find a mentor that you can work under, and do that for at least 3 years. The longer the better, actually. But at least 3 years, and build your foundation. It will pay you for the rest of your career. Many people who have just rushed out there and I don't want to work for anybody, I'm doing my own thing, I'm freelancing. It doesn't allow you to go far. I haven't seen many architects. I mean, you can quote me. I haven't seen many architects that have gone very far as freelancers. I haven't seen many architects that have gone far as freelancers. Many of the architects who are my contemporaries today, who have, made great progress in their practices, most of them went and trained somewhere. In fact, I've seen a correlation. I've seen a correlation between the quality of training people got at the beginning and the progress they make in their career. It's not to say that that training is a guarantee for success, okay? But I would say that many of the most successful people I've seen, you can trace it to their training. There are few people I know who have gone far, and even the few who have gone far somehow, they still have a handicap because they were not, they didn't build that foundation. The way I always say it is that when you want to build a structure, a building structure, you know that if you want to build a high rise, you spend more time in the foundation most time because the foundation most likely will be more robust. But if you're just building a niche in a low rise building, bungalow, 1 or 2 levels, then you can afford to just do any kind of foundation and move on. So if you want to be an architect of stature, go and learn the rudiments in a proper practice. Try and get the best you can find. I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
So moving on to the next question. It goes, is architecture really worth it? Because this has been a recurring question from many of our polls, and most of them ask today, is architecture really worth it? Because people are leaving the profession. Some people say it's not profitable. Some say it's not worth the stress. So the question we have for you, Mr. Architect Kelechi, sir, is architecture really in Nigeria?
So whether something is worth it is really for you to decide as an individual. Yeah, because satisfaction from anything is not measured by your bank account alone. It's not measured in financial terms only. Okay, so if you're to measure architecture by financial rewards only, I'll tell you for free that architecture is not the easiest way to make money, right? There are many other professions that seem to provide financial reward faster and maybe with less pressure. I'll tell you that. But if satisfaction for you includes enjoying what you do, finding creative expression, being able to envision things and see them happen, being able to create spaces and all of that, then architecture is worth it every step of the way. Architecture is something that if you're passionate about it, you'll continue to enjoy it. I enjoy what I do completely. I love it. It's hard to separate my life from what I do because they're just so intertwined. Sometimes I'm driving and my wife complains that I'm always photographing buildings as I move around, or I go to a building, I'm just looking around, looking at the finishing, trying to understand the spaces, trying to look at the details, photographs. Sometimes you open my phone and you might see more pictures of buildings and selfies. I hardly even do selfies, but you find a lot of pictures of buildings and details, and I'm constantly learning, constantly eager to learn more. So in that sense, it's extremely rewarding. I completely love it and enjoy it. Yeah, but if it's measured by finance alone, then it will be tough for you to stay because you keep seeing alternatives that you can do that can give you money faster and more easily. You will keep meeting some colleagues who, because the career path they're taking is one that is more financially rewarding. Sometimes you might meet people, your contemporaries, who are more financially empowered than you are. And sometimes that does indeed put pressure. So the only way you know to withstand that is if you're really passionate about this. Yeah. So if you're not super passionate about architecture, then you can choose the nearest exit door.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So the next question will be, more importantly, as a person asks, why is it hard to find mentors who genuinely concerned about your career goals? And how do we find mentors as an architect, as strong architects?
Hmm. Why is it hard to find mentors who are genuinely concerned about your career growth? Is it really hard? Is it really hard? Hmm. Well, I don't think if it's hard to find mentors who are genuinely concerned about your growth, I don't think it's peculiar to architecture. It might just be hard to find mentors who are genuinely interested in your growth. Period. If that is the case, I'm not sure that's the case. I think great leaders are just um, not everybody is a great leader, and so not everybody will be a great mentor. Yeah, but just like with every other kind of leadership, um, the higher you want to find in terms of greatness, the fewer there will be. So I think there are mentors, there are people who are willing to teach, who are willing to add value. But I would also say that the mentorship experience, satisfaction from the mentorship experience is not the responsibility of the mentor alone. It's also the responsibility of the mentee. And I would say that there are people who are fun to mentor and there are those who aren't. So somebody once defined mentorship as not the person, your mentor is not the person who gives you advice. Your mentor is the person whose advice you take. So you find there are some people who don't like to take advice. And so those such people are frustrating to any mentor. So when you advise somebody once or twice and the person is heady and refusing to and doing what they want to do at that point, you just don't want to stress it. So nobody likes to give advice that people don't listen to or don't follow. But if you're someone who's malleable, who truly respects the wisdom that their mentor has and follows through with it, mentor says, I think this is great for you. You do it and you report results. That person you're a delight to that mentor. You're a delight to that mentor. And people sometimes think that teachers and mentors just like to make things hard for people. I can assure you that most good teachers, their delight is in the excellence of their students, in the success of their students. And I think the same applies to mentors. Mentors delight in the success of their mentees. So I think if you want to get great mentors, you also need to be a great mentee, one who is hungry for the knowledge, who follows through on the advice, who reports feedback, even when they give you negative feedback, right? You take it with you accept it pleasantly, and you're also willing to support your mentor as well. So like people just want to be mentored and sometimes don't realize you also need to go to give back. So people who are very resourceful and very keen to give back also will probably be more attractive to mentors. So imagine, as I'm quite a busy person. I have an office I'm running, I have people on my team, and then someone outside my office now wants to be mentored by me. Meanwhile, I give my advice, doesn't listen. He's not offering to be of any value to me in any way. And he expects me to make myself available. Come on, at point I'll say, look, I don't have the time for this. But then I'll look at the other person by comparison, who comes, maybe shows up at my events, sends feedback on maybe joins this meeting, sends me feedback on the things I said. I can tell he listens, maybe follows up on my social media accounts, tells me, giving me feedback positively. He's asking how he can help, suggesting volunteering to do this or that. That person will just push himself to the front of the line and get my attention. That's just the way it works. And that's the way it works for most of the people who are willing to be mentors. If you show yourself to be somebody who's willing to give value in exchange, many people will grab you with both hands. There's always space for somebody who is a value adder. There's always space for somebody who is extremely resourceful. So if you're extremely resourceful, sooner or later you get somebody's attention. Yeah, I hope I answered the question. I know there were two questions in one.
Actually, you answered three questions in one, because the next question was going to be, would you be willing to serve as a referee for someone applying for the associate member of NIA? So that's the next question I was going to ask.
So I get this request all the time, and I've done that for quite a few people. But what I usually say to people is I believe that by design, the referee requirements for the NIA registrations was, I think by design, it was intended to be that your referee is somebody who knows you. there used to be times of random people just call me out of the blue and ask me to referee them, and I'll just politely say that, I'm not supposed to be a referee if I don't know you. Yeah, but when I was serving as chair of the Young Architects Forum, that those requests are coming more frequently. So I started trying to find a way to be of assistance. And so sometimes if somebody approaches me, then I'll probably ask the person to come over and let's meet physically, or let's, I'll try and find a way that we get to know a little bit, so that way I feel like I'm doing the right thing by, referring somebody that's being a referee for somebody, because at least I made some effort to know the person. So yes is the answer, but preferably somebody I already know. And if it's somebody I don't know, then we have to try and find a way to get to know each other, so that way I can confidently say, yes, I refereed you because at least I know something about you, which I think is what it should be. Yeah, that's my view about it.
Okay, sir. So this will be the last question for this session. Then we move into the next session, which will be more about businesses and finances. So for the question, it says,
my favorite areas.
Following the appropriate professional paths, what would you recommend?
Following the appropriate professional path.
Yes.
I don't understand the question. The appropriate professional path to what?
So being an architect, as a graduate following the appropriate professional path, what would you recommend?
Okay, so let's assume what the person means by appropriate professional path is that the person is following a path to licensure and consulting. These days architects have a wide range of things they do, and not every single discipline requires licensure per se. Some architects are contractors, some architects are project managers, some architects work in-house for companies that are, as representatives, the companies that are marketing us, selling building materials and building products and so on and so forth. Such roles may not necessarily require licensure, because really licensure means that you're licensed to carry the responsibility for a building that is built. So what I would say is the appropriate path as a graduate is that you do your tutelage, which is that you work under a registered architect who has at least 5 years post-licensure. You work under such a person for a minimum of 2 years. So 2 years is what the NIA and ACON recommend, but I find that in reality, most people actually require more than 2 years to be able to qualify, because it's not just 2 years automatic. There's also a curriculum of experience that you're expected to have covered, in terms of the 3 distinct stages, stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 of architecture: concept design, working drawings, building supervision, and your exams. Many times they have expected you to have, seen a building from start to finish. You find out that not too many people are able to see buildings from start to finish in 2 years, because some buildings take a long time, to be built. So I'll probably say that in practice, in reality, you should probably allow 3 to 5 years for that, especially if you want to do the exams as somebody who truly has the experience. Now, there are many people who do the exams and don't pass it the right way. They just go and copy and paste a report, and just try to do different, do different shortcuts, and maybe they may not get found out, and so they may actually get licensed. But it's a shame sometimes when you see somebody who is registered and the person's experience, the person doesn't have the experience to defend it, to back it, doesn't have the quality of experience to back it. So if your question is about right way is to have the quality of experience that should be able to defend you carrying a license, say you have the license to approve or to sign off on buildings. So yeah, go to tutelage, on the registered architect for minimum of 2 years, but more likely 3 to 5 years to meet the requirements, and then you sit for the NIA exams, or you sit for the NIA, sometimes not at least NIA combined exams, and go through that process, and eventually you have your license, and then carry on from there.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. And speaking about experience, from your wealth of experience, what is the proper sequence of conducting precedent studies and design? And how can designers be more intentional about it?
Sorry, please T or Gunlana, can you mute yourself? Your sound's kind of getting in, Sarah, can you just say that question again?
Okay, the question is, what is the proper sequence for conducting precedent studies in design, and how can designers be more intentional about this phase?
So conducting what studies?
Precedent studies, case studies.
Okay, case studies.
Yes.
What is the proper way of conducting case studies?
Yes.
Okay. Back in school, sometimes we did case studies after the fact. You've already done your design.
Yeah.
You've already done your design, and then you find one or two case studies and attach as your case studies. So that is the wrong way. The proper way is that when you see a building type, you have a project you're trying to, a problem you're trying to solve. You look for buildings that are similar in context, in terms of scale and complexity. Similar in context, similar in scale and complexity. And preferably look for more than one. And then, having done some research on what that building is, you now take the case studies to see how the case studies responded to that problem. Where possible, you visit those buildings, walk through them, see how they responded to some of the challenges you've seen in your design, so that you can, see how they responded to all the challenges, and then, you understand some of the things that are most critical, some of the things that are, key to the design working properly, or the most challenging parts of it. And then you take that knowledge and then go into to solve your own specific challenge. And while you're at it, sometimes you might still meet problems that require you to go back to your case studies to see how they solve them. The idea is not to copy and paste the same solution as the case study, but by understanding how the case study responded to their peculiar challenges, some of which might be similar to yours, you then, may borrow a leaf from some of those solutions. You might apply some of the solutions if they apply to you, or you may respond differently, seeing how they responded to their own peculiarities, their own challenge. So that would be it in a nutshell. Interestingly, I still find myself doing case studies. Right, we do case studies in our office. We're currently working on a hotel project, and took me back to go do some more case studies. We said a few hotels, trying to understand how the fire exits work, trying to understand how the back of house works, trying to understand how some of them have been able to create different room sizes, different room categories, looking at how they've been able to integrate some other functions beyond just the rooms and some of the basic things that make up a hotel. And those type of things, sometimes maybe the site is a bit tight, so trying to see how they resolve parking, whether they did multi-level underground parking, or how they resolve those challenges. So in the past 2 years, maybe I've visited maybe 4 or 5 hotels, just on the same project, just trying to gain insight to get best results. So it's an ongoing process, it's continuous, and there've been other building types I've had to visit while working on projects that, especially when they're still new. The building type is not one that I've done too many of. So yeah, I still do case studies. My Podex still does a lot of case studies.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. I was also going to ask if you still do that, but you mentioned
absolutely.
Okay, so now about the business and the practice. So the question is, what has worked for you in building Podex from a business perspective? And what advice would you give to architects building their own practice?
All right. I can give a whole lecture on this. I can give you a whole lecture. There's so many things to say. Let me just write a few things down so I can give you a few pointers. What has worked for me? Well, the first thing I'll say is one of the things that's worked for me is reading a lot, right? I've read a lot and I continue to read a lot about business management. I've read a lot of books on business management. As a matter of fact, I have an app on my phone, audible.com, that I'm constantly reading a book. And virtually every time when you meet me, constantly reading a book and reading a lot of things about business management. I read about negotiation, I read about marketing, I've read about building teams, I've read about leadership, building leaders. I've read things about mentality, about attitude, sales. I read things about entrepreneurship, about setting up businesses. So I've read a lot about that. I've also attended some business programs, business seminars, not so seminars, it's a business training. It's a business training I did at the Enterprise Development Center. It's part of the Paranati University, which is affiliated with it's part of the sister school to Lagos Business School. And learned a lot of things. For one of the trainings I attended at one time was called Talent is Not Enough. And we were just helping creatives. It wasn't just architects, creatives generally, architects, artists, photographers, fashion designers, all of us in the class. And they were teaching us that many times creatives tend to think that creativity is enough for you to be successful. And they let us know that many things you need to know about business. And so, I've done a few of those trainings. So it helped a lot because there are many things that you need to know that are universal to every kind of business, not architecture alone. And so, these are some of the things that we'll put to practice in Podex. One of the things I would say is important in business is the legality of the business, knowing that you need to register your business properly as a corporate entity. And if you register as a limited liability company, or depending on the type of registration you do, most type of registrations would entail that the business becomes a separate entity from you, the individual. Even if you're one of the founders or one of the shareholders, the business becomes a separate entity, and that's very crucial. So for us in Podex, Podex was created as a separate entity. So my name is Kelechi, I'm the MD of Podex, but I'm not Podex. Podex is Podex, and I'm me. And it seems like a simple statement, but it goes through many things. It means that the assets of the company are different from my personal assets. It means that the accounts of the company are different from my personal accounts. The discipline to separate that is very, very important in business. The discipline to separate company accounts from private accounts, very key. Many architects, many business people, not just architects, many business people across many disciplines don't have this discipline. They just treat office funds like it's theirs. But when you separate it, it allows you to invest in the business, to grow capacity of the business, to grow the financial records of the business, and it just creates better financial stability. Many businesses die not out of lack of, not for the absence of creative ideas, but for the absence of financial discipline. Okay. So one of the things that we tried to do with the company, starting early on, was to always have funds in the reserves. And so what that has done is that the financial health of the company is stable. At the beginning of this year, I said to my team, we're having a retreat, that we had sufficient savings to pay salaries for a full year, even if we didn't earn a couple in 2026. But that takes financial discipline. So what does that mean? That means that the members of staff know that their jobs are safe. It means that rent is paid consistently. It means that there's money to run the operations of the company, and that gives stability. Because some firms struggle because maybe they get income. The leaders, the owners of the firm take the income and go and just enjoy themselves, and then the income doesn't come shortly after, and then they dry up. They stop paying salaries, or they owe salaries, and things like this type of instability don't allow people to trust the leadership of the company. And so, talking about leadership now, we start talking about people. Because if you're if you claim to be a leader, nobody's following you. According to John Maxwell, you're just taking a walk. Someone who's walking and nobody's following is just taking a stroll. It's not a leader. So you have to, for great business, you have to also learn leadership skills, the ability to communicate your vision, the ability to inspire people to follow you, to believe in you and to follow you, the ability to have people willing to make sacrifices based on something that you're doing. It takes your ability to show empathy, to show that you're also interested in their welfare, you're also interested in their development, and that you're somebody who keeps to your word, someone who can be trusted. Many times people don't just buy into a firm, they buy into the leadership, buy into a business, they buy into the leadership of that business. So it's important to understand leadership if you really want to run business properly. It's good to build structures, to build proper documentation for your business, because above a particular height, you cannot really grow a business if you don't start early to build proper documentation for the business. I'm talking about your financial records, having a corporate account and letting all your money go to the account, your tax records, understanding the different levels of compliance that are required to work for different organizations. Yeah, some of the things that we have learned in running business is that, if you want to work for many of the big corporate organizations, including the multinational organizations, telecoms, oil and gas, financial services, even government, there are certain compliance documents you need to have, like you need to pay taxes, you need to have tax clearance certificates, you need to have pension clearance certificates, you need to have remittances to NHIST. I can't remember what that means. That's just sovereign insurance fund, something like that. There are many different levels of compliance, and it varies from industry to industry. Like for us, some of our clients are in oil and gas, so we had to have registrations with Nigerian upstream regulatory industry. And to register there are different documents, policy documents that you need to build. So you see that there's a lot of work that goes behind the scene in building up documentation for your organization, right? Beyond just designing, there's so much more than just designing. But the interesting thing is that many of those organizations won't even give you a chance if you don't have that documentation, right? You can't work for the major telecommunications companies without certain things. And from time to time, as the government releases policies, those organizations will write to you and let you know that you need to update this document. So that's how we've been able to work in some of these industries. By God's grace, we've worked for financial institutions. Talking about banks and co. We've worked for pension fund administrators. We've worked for oil and gas companies, the international oil and gas companies. We've worked for some companies in the development space, multinational development space organizations. We've worked for government, and a lot of this has been possible because we took the time over a period to build our documentation, right? It attracts, sometimes also attracts wahala, right? But that comes with the terrain. For instance, I think it was this morning, I was reading an email from our mid manager. He was informing our accountants that he was informing our tax consultants that the LIRS, as Lagos State Revenue Service, will be visiting us in March or so. So we needed to have certain documentations ready in preparation for their visit. We also needed to have our audited accounts done in March, because we know sooner or later the new FIRS, now called Nigeria Revenue Service, will come visiting. So the moment you start doing those things, those people come knocking on your door, asking you to pay taxes and so on. But while it might seem like a lot of money you're spending doing that, it pays, because there are certain industries you cannot work for if you don't have those, and those industries pay better than many of the individuals. If you don't do all those stuff, you end up just being an architect or an architecture firm that just services private sector alone, and not even the private sector, the informal private sector. It's good as a practice. And that's one of the things I learned from the firm I worked for, ATO, when I worked with them. One of the things I learned was to try and have a diversified client portfolio, because sometimes some industries go through downtime. But if you have a diversified portfolio of clients, it allows you to survive. For instance, in 2023, I think 23 or 24, I think it was 2023, one of the telecommunications companies was our biggest client. Was among our biggest clients in that year. The following year, because of the devaluation of the currency, they didn't give us much work. But now, the following year, it now became one of our oil and gas clients that became our biggest clients. Then the following year, 2025, the oil and gas company did not give us that much work. And they now became this international development organization that gave us a lot of work. And then in between all that, we're also getting work from private clients as well, and private organizations. So building a diverse portfolio is important. It happens if you are able to build proper documentation, right? Or where did you start? Sometimes just ask yourself, if you look at, sometimes when you see companies give out expression of interest, sometimes it's on the newspapers or you see it online, expression of interest, they're looking for an architectural firm to do XYZ, let's say cancer center, blah, 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 Abuja. Sometimes you look at it, this is too big, I can't do it. Suppose just throw it aside and move on. One thing you can do, you can pick it up and say, I'm not qualified for it, but what are the requirements? You look at the requirements and you start getting them one by one. It takes time. But when you've been able to build it over time, it then opens doors for you. And you sometimes just see and invitations are coming. We get that now. Once a mail just drop, one telecommunications was asking us to send a proposal for XYZ. A mail just drop. One oil and gas company is asking us to make a proposal for so. And that's what has helped us to have a diverse portfolio, and that's what I'll say. So maybe there are more questions I can tell you more about business, but this is just an overview over something that is very broad, right? I just try to give an overview, but it's broad. It's quite a broad topic.
Yeah, it's actually something that I did not really think about architecture. You just really spoke about beyond designing. There's a lot to architecture than design, and it's really interesting. So a follow-up question I would love to ask. Let
me say something. Sorry, before you give your follow-up question.
Okay, sir.
So the things I've spoken about are not peculiar to architecture.
Okay.
You understand? All these things I spoke about, they're not peculiar to architecture. They are peculiar to doing business at a certain level. So those things have become important. They become important when you want to take the business side of your architecture. When you want your architecture to thrive as a business. When you want to thrive as a business, then you need to operate by business philosophy, business principles, which are universal across industries. There are peculiarities for architects, all right. But these things I'm saying are relevant, even if it's a pharmacy business, even if it's a furniture business, even if it's a construction business, even if it's a graphic design business. They're universal across. So I could very well be saying this thing to an audience that's not architects. But the problem with architects, oftentimes, many architects, and not just architects, many creatives think that creativity is enough, or that they are talents. They think that if they are creatives, they're great designers, that should guarantee success. That should mean that the biggest companies come to them. Sometimes you read about Norman Foster, Baker Ingalls, and those kind of guys, and you just assume that they've gotten where they are because they're great designers. That is not the complete story. The complete story is that they also have strong business structures behind them as well. Because if you have design alone, it's not enough to take you to the top. Design alone is not enough. Okay. But design is key.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. So the next question I would love to ask is, you mentioned you read a lot, you attend seminars, and you do a lot of stuff to build yourself. And as architects, we tag ourselves as very busy individuals. So how do you find time to read beyond architecture? Because you see, many times when we read about architecture, architects, and so how do you tailor your time to read beyond architecture and go into other stuff that you mentioned?
First of all, I'll say thank you to the guys who are doing the thumbs up in the chat section. It's actually quite encouraging to see those thumbs up. It kind of elevates your mood. So thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate that. Career is in stages. Your career is in stages. There's a stage where you're a grinder. There's a stage where you're a grinder, which means you're the one who does all the nitty-gritties of the work. You're very hands-on, you're doing everything. There's a stage where you become a minder, which means that you have grinders under you and you oversee them. And there's a stage where you become a finder, where you're focused now on finding the opportunities. And then you have minders who you communicate those opportunities to, and then they supervise the grinders. So as you grow in different stages of your career, you should recognize those phases and accept the new challenges that come with each of them. At the phase where I am right now, I still design, okay? However, in my office, I don't take any project from start to finish. I just come in at different stages where my expertise or my experience is most critical. And for some projects, I hardly even come in at all because I have quite experienced and very competent people on my team. So it's not even every project that I really, really look into closely. There are projects that happen with just a little involvement from me. I try to maintain oversight, but because we're growing and our portfolio is growing, there's some projects that I don't spend too much time looking at. So at the early stage of my career, obviously, I used to do a lot of drawing myself, with the software, my systems and all that. As I moved from that stage to when I started having more and more work where I'm doing multiple projects, and let me say 4 projects at the same time, and then at the time will now employ me 1 or 2 people. What I started doing at that time was I may do parts of the design and then hand over to somebody else to finish it up. I may do some parts of the design and then somebody else pick it up and finish. And so I'll be checking along the way. But where I am today, by God's grace, I still do parts of the design for some projects. But now I do most of that by sketching. I hardly even sit down on the computer to draw. As a matter of fact, for the past 7 years, I have not ever had any drawing software on my laptop. For the past 7-8 years, I don't have Revit, AutoCAD. What I have is PDF, Microsoft Office, sketchpads, And I have sketchpads. I have sketch on my table. I have physical sketchpads and stuff to sketch on my phone, on my computer, and so on. Excel, Microsoft Office packages, all that. So I've not even had the need to have Revit or CAD or any of those things on my system. And I can use Revit, by the way. It's not as if I can't. But it's just a phase now, So sometimes you see some architects telling me that, I want to learn this new software, I want to do this, and I just wonder how they have the time for that. Because if you're focused on finding, which is meeting clients, understanding leadership, understanding business development, understanding new government policies, understanding managing your people, right? Training your people, empowering your people, creating policies and philosophies for the practice. And if the practice is busy, you won't be able to combine that with drawing. So what to answer your question, I've learned to focus on the things that are most valuable, or better put, the things I cannot delegate are the things that I focus on. I focus on the things that I cannot delegate, so that the things I can delegate, I delegate. And what it has meant is that I've had to sometimes give up things I enjoy doing. So, for instance, just today, I was talking to one of the graduate interns in my office, and I was asking her to help me with something, a graphic design work. I was giving her some feedback on what I wanted done. And then I just mentioned to her that, that there used to be a time when I was so involved in graphic design that it looked as if I was going to veer off into graphic design and leave architecture. So this was just to say that I do have a lot of competence in graphic design. I can do graphic design quite well. Okay. but I simply don't have the time. So I have to delegate it to other people and they just supervise them. Do you understand? And so on. And so I used to love visualization, but I don't have the time to sit down and do visualization. So I more or less guide people. I share visions. I do more vision sharing. And then I let people on the team spend the time doing that. That is the way. That's the way to transition through your phases. The higher up you go, the further removed you are from the day-to-day details. If you choose to stick to the day-to-day details, you won't leave the ground. You will remain at a low level. But if you want to go to a higher level, you have to be able to let go of the day-to-day details and delegate it to other people. You have to trust them, you have to train them, you have to empower them, and you have to be willing to let them make their mistakes. Okay, people will make mistakes, but you have to just give them the protection, give them the cover to make those mistakes and learn from them, and then they can support you better. Sometimes people are reluctant to let go of things because they think, if I don't do it, people will spoil it. If I don't do this thing myself, my people cannot do it how I do it. If you do that, you constrain yourself you limit yourself, you limit the growth of your own organization. But organizations grow when the leader relinquishes responsibilities, trusts other people, gives them feedback, helps them develop it, helps them grow, but relinquishes those responsibilities to them. And that's how I find the time. So I've started focusing a lot more on the things I told you about and a lot less on the things I used to do 10 years and 20 years ago.
Wow. Thank you so very much, sir. This is really beautiful and really insightful. So the next question, that's really the last question for this business phase and this business section is, what is the ultimate goal of design? Profit or impact?
I think both. I think both, right? Profit and impact are both important. I think the ultimate goal is to balance. The ultimate goal really should be balance. To recognize the projects for which impact should get the higher priority, and to also recognize the projects for which profits may get the higher higher priority, and to balance it, right? Not to be an architect or a designer who's just all about profit and all about profit and little about impact, or to be a designer who's all about impact and cannot pay the bills.
Yes.
It's important that you strike a balance. You may love what you do, but if what you do cannot pay your bills or care for your family, it's just a hobby or a waste of your time.
Yeah. Okay, sir. So thank you very much, sir. And I'll be asking you some bonus questions if you don't mind.
Sure, bring it on.
Our time is fast spent, and I'll just list them out as it comes. So the first question is, there is a better need for professional communication from senior architects. The industry also needs to be organized and structured with clear professional standards, stronger go-to architects, and better work-life balance, especially for women. The question goes, how do you think the professions can improve in these areas?
That's a long question. I wish you could. Can you take it again? This is a very long question.
Let me just hit the how do you think the profession can improve in these areas? That's the areas of work-life balance, communication between the senior architect and the junior architects, especially for women. Yeah, that's best summarized.
All right. Work-life balance, to be honest with you, has been a challenge for our field, for our profession, even from school. We spend a lot of time in the studio, long hours in the studio, and we also continue to spend long hours even in the workplace. And it's not an easy balance to achieve. But I would say it's not peculiar to us. It's peculiar. It's also true of many design service-oriented businesses, and because of the nature of the creativity, sometimes it's difficult to put a timeline to it. So it's a challenge that's not unique to us. So just if it's a bit comforting, it's good that you know that you're not alone in this. So hopefully that gives some comfort. But having said that, as leaders of our own firms, we need to try to find ways to make the work easier. I think first of all is to create a very comfortable work culture, to create a very comfortable work culture where people are not under pressure, where people have psychological safety, which means that they have opportunity to communicate, to discuss, to ask, to speak to the leadership of the organization and express all the challenges they're having. I think it's important for leaders to try to create psychological safety in their organizations. Thankfully, remote working is now a possibility. So I think I would encourage firms to try to have some remote working options available. It helps to reduce the pressure, at least reduce commute time, which also adds to pressure. In our firm, for instance, we have hybrid. We have a hybrid work culture today, which means that most staff, at least from associate level and above, can work from home on 2 days a week, and work in the office for 3 days. So that hopefully helps to ease the pressure, from having to be away from family, away from home, away from all of that, have a bit more balance. Again, trying to incorporate proper structures to your business health, where people can take leaves, people can legally take time off work, paid time off in the course of the year. They can have leave days where you just have respect for public holidays. You have time where you allow people to decompress. Those are things that leaders need to try and put in, right? Sometimes people just want to draw every single thing out of their staff, but the truth is that if you suck every energy or every time people have, sooner or later those people will burn out and abandon you, so you lose them completely. So if you don't give people a little time to catch their breath, they will eventually leave you completely. So it takes wisdom for leaders to try to find that balance. The pressure is real. I won't lie to you, the pressure is real, but you have to build into your time. Something else that firms will also try to do is to sometimes build a little redundancy in their system. And what I mean by that is just the same way a car only needs 4 tires, but a car always carries a 5th tire as a spare. Sometimes we need to build such redundancy into our systems. So you don't say, okay, I have work for 4 people, therefore I only hire 4 people. I have work for 4 people, but I may ensure I have 5, or I have one other person on part-time or something, or I have interns, or I have people like that on the team. And these are people who can help to provide temporary relief to your core guys so that they can rest. Those of us who watch football know that the strength of a team includes the depth of its bench. So a team that does not have players who can come off the bench is only one or two injuries away from failure. So we need to try to build a bit of redundancy into our team, so that sometimes when somebody has a reason to be away, right, reason of illness, family engagement, personal commitments, or just rest, whatever it is, it's not as if the business is crashing, and then you're able to absorb that sort of thing. It's talking about communication between senior and junior people, especially women. I think I answered that question when I talked about psychological safety. I think the way I think of our profession, right, and the way I think of life as a whole is I always ask myself, what kind of responsibility can I personally take? What can I do about this? What can I do? I hear people sometimes say, what's NIA doing? What's ACON doing? What are they doing? What are they? Who are this day? Right? Who are this day that we're talking about? I always feel, what can I do? What can I do? And I'll say what I try to do, which I hope will be some kind of motivation to everybody else, because some of you will be leaders if you're not already leaders in your organizations. What I've tried to do in my firm is to create psychological safety, create and set an example. I've tried to lead by example as far as trying to treat employees with respect, trying to have mutual respect between seniors and juniors, right, within a practice. That somebody is a junior today does not mean you should treat the person with disrespect. As a matter of fact, I had a very interesting experience last year. there used to be a lady who worked with us. She worked with us in 2021 or so. And the way she left the firm wasn't the nicest, right? She had some personal challenges, and then she just brought a resignation letter and she had to leave the next day. So it wasn't the most pleasant. It was a bit upsetting, but somehow we managed the exit well. She had been a great staff, so we still wished her well and all of that. And she kept in touch. Sometime later on, she wrote to me and just kind of apologized for the circumstances around her departure and explained some peculiar challenges she was going through. Not necessarily about the business; it was personal to her. But at the time, she didn't feel comfortable opening up about it, so she had to leave. So she apologized for the circumstance, and then I told her, you're still family. You're welcome to come around, and we just remained cordial. Interestingly, she got employed in some organization and nominated us to do a project, right? Nominated us to do a project for their firm, a group of projects, not just one, a group of projects. We're doing some multiple projects. So that lady is now our client, or at least she represents our client. She's not working for our client. So when in meeting, she's our client. So think about that. When your former employee now becomes your client, if the relationship was messed up, now imagine how that would look. In a meeting, she still calls me sir. She still shows me a lot of respect. I also show her respect because she's our client. If that relationship was sour and there was opportunity for it to be sour, if it was, I can't even tell you that I foresaw that this situation would arise, but I just felt it was important to show respect to people, even if they're your subordinates. So, but this has shown me that you never know tomorrow. And so I think it's important for us as leaders in the organizations we build to try and have mutual respect built in as one of the core values of our organizations. Yeah.
Thank you very, very much, Architect Kelechi. And that would have been the last question for the day, but I would love to ask this, and it's regarding HND graduates. And it's
regarding what?
The HND graduates are Polytechnic brothers. So it says, is there an alternative pathway for HND graduates to write the ACON or NIA PCE final examinations?
This question comes up every now and then, and I truly, truly feel sorry about the answers that are available. Because especially when I served as Young Architects Forum chair, I could see the pain of many HND graduates who are desirous of writing the exams, who feel like they are treated as second-class architects, and the pain that I feel the pain that they're going through. But the painful truth is that today, based on the laws that we have, ACON has, the regulations ACON has, there isn't a pathway for HND graduates to write the exams except they go and get a BSc degree and an MSc degree. That's the current status. The pathway that's available is for them to become architectural technologists, which does have some opportunities, and some people have embraced it. It does have some opportunities, but I can understand that people want to have the option to choose to be whatever they want to be. But I think the thing that many people do not recognize is the design for the curriculum of the BSc and the HND. The HND was designed to be more technical in training, while the BSc MSc degrees were designed to be more theoretical in training. And so the professional licensure pathway is for those with that theoretical training. So what I would say to HND holders, if they want to be registered, I would say the opportunity for them today is to do a direct entry program and go back and come do a BSc program. I know it's a long, painful route, but that is the pathway that is available as we speak. Perhaps with advocacy, the laws may be updated in the future to create a shorter route. But as we speak today, this is what it is. I know of a few people who have taken this route, and it has moved on faster than it seems. So people, there was this program we did under the NIA, Young Architects Forum, and they know one or two people who talked about how they had finished HND and gone back and started BSc from the beginning, and then finished their MSc and then done their PPE and become licensed. My heart was touched by that long journey, because that's a long journey, and I know it's painful. But some people have taken that journey, and it has moved faster than you would imagine when you think about it from the beginning. What some of them have done, some of them have maintained part-time jobs, during that time. And interestingly, there are some architects who have been in practice for that same length of time, and they're still not registered for various reasons. So if one truly wants to get this licensure, my advice is to quickly get on the pathway quickly, right? Rather than just shouting about it on different platforms and getting angry about it. Yeah. And then of course, if you have the opportunity to advise people who are still early in their careers and they think that going HND or going BSc are the same, they need to know that the pathways for licensure are not the same. And so if licensure is very important, then they should do the licensure part quickly. Yeah, but again, I must also add, because earlier on when I was talking, I mentioned that it's not every career opportunity in architecture that necessarily requires licensure. There are roles that trained architects can play in different organizations, some of which are actually quite rewarding, that do not necessarily require licensure. So those options are still available, just putting it out there. But the question I've tried to answer already. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so very much, sir. And I don't know, hope you don't mind asking if you could state out the rules, what architects will do without being licensed.
Okay, so for starters, you can work in a firm. You can be a major part of a firm that already has a licensed architect, and you can play a key role. I know some people who are very senior, play very senior roles in some firms, some big firms, but they're not licensed because the license of the other partners, covers them. So that's one scenario. There are also scenarios where I know people who work with manufacturing companies, building product manufacturing companies, or building product sales companies. There's this company called Alankari. They're into sanitary wares and a lot of stuff like that. I know one architect who works with them, although she's licensed anyway, but she doesn't need to be licensed to do what she's doing. What she's doing more or less is she's like their communications person between the salespeople. She's like a salesperson, right? But she's like a technical salesperson. The technical salesperson is the kind of person who can engage professionals, who can speak in professional terms, who can understand the needs of professionals, but the person is a salesperson. So they can come and tell you the technical specifications of something. They can interface with architects and advise you on how to use their product. Companies like Dulux have such people, within their system. So those are just a few of the areas where that is possible. Yeah. So yeah, that's just to put it out there.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
And then project management. There's some people who switch into project management and get a PMI certification and become project manager. So they have a background in architecture, but their focus is project management. There are people who focus on interior design. And so if you're going to be, majoring in interior design or landscape design, you may not necessarily do this as an architect. You may also get by doing those areas and perhaps collaborating with licensed architects, whatever you need to.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for this honest and depth answers and reviews and talks. It has really been inspiring and enlightening. And I don't know, Mr. Dikachi, I don't know if you have questions to ask before we call it a night.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, architects. Kelechi.
Oh no, Kachi, how are you doing? Good to hear from you.
I'm well, sir. Okay, just a quick one. You mentioned, I know this is the second time I'm hearing you say it, that you've spoken to your team during a retreat, and then you said, "Look, guys, if we don't have any jobs this year, your salaries are covered." I just want to know what kind of structure
Yes.
does Podex, what kind of financial structures does Podex invest into? Is it just savings? Because with the little knowledge I have, I guess it may not be just savings. Is it just what does Podex invest in to ensure that okay, whether or not we have inflow, be able to take care of our recurrence?
Okay. For the time, for presently, we have investments in mutual funds. We have fixed deposits. We have fixed deposits, and we have investments in mutual funds. So mutual funds pay higher interest than regular bank deposits. So we have, money in mutual funds. There are other investment opportunities, but these are the ones that we're currently doing. I know that you could also invest in physical assets, real estate assets, and so on. We hope to get there, but we haven't started doing that yet. And part of the reason too is that we've also been getting a bit into some construction work, some construction and fit out work in addition to our consulting. And some of the organizations we work for require us to self-finance. So let's say you get a project that is worth 50 million, 100 million, whatever, and they need you to start the work. So maybe you need to do 25%, put in 25% of your own money first before they pay you anything, before you get your first certificate to get paid. So we've had a few of those type of projects, design and build type projects, where the payments are milestone based, and so we have to start with our own money up to a stage. So we also have had to try to ensure that we have built up our capital so that with such projects we can at least start the work without having to borrow or anything like that, right? Without looking for credit facilities to be able to allow us to fund those projects. So having that kind of working capital is also quite important to us. And in doing different investment types, you want to look out to see how quickly you can take your liquidity, where necessary. So, for instance, if you take money and go and buy land, as an example, and then suddenly you have a contract worth, let's say, 100 million, and you need to fund it by yourself up to 30 million, 40 million before you get paid, and then you want to go and sell that land. Sometimes you may find that land does not just sell overnight. You have to wait a long time. So it may not be easy to liquidate it to get the cash as quickly as you want. So part of our priority in these investments is ease at which we can get our cash back. So with mutual funds, with fixed deposits, yes, we may have to forfeit some of the interest, but we can get most of them can get our capital within 24 hours. So those are the ones that work for us currently. But there's a range of options. We will continue to explore options so that we also have passive income where we're not just getting income from work that we do directly, we're also getting income from investment. So at the moment we're getting a little bit of that, but the volume is going to increase by God's grace as we expand our investment portfolio. Yeah, so
Okay,
that
thank you very much,
question.
sir. Yes, it does.
All right, thank you.
Okay, our time is fast spent, and Kelechi, I really appreciate your time, and we appreciate your views and your knowledge. And to everyone listening here, architecture is not a sprint. It is layered growth, skills, structure, mentorship, positioning, and philosophy. And from the words of architect Kelechi, read a lot. And thank you so much, sir, for inspiring us and for clarifying our law areas. And thank you for being part of this conversation. Do have a nice evening.
Yeah, thank you, Salome. You've done a great job with the moderating. I look forward to meeting you face to face. Thank you. We have?
Yes, the earlier excursion we did where we went.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Okay, so hopefully we'll meet again. I mean, I met a lot of people that day, so I can't remember every single person I met. But yeah, glad to know that we've met. Hopefully we get to meet again. But you've done a great job with the moderation. Thank you very much. And to Glory, thank you for Glory Omawobi, thank you for the invitation. I think I've enjoyed this. It's something I enjoy doing. I had a long, stressful day today, so I had hinted him that please let's not have this session go too long. I know some of you may have questions that you would like to ask, but it's been a really, really long day, and I had to stay back in the office to finish the session before going back to take my rest. Okay, but I've enjoyed this, and I hope some of the things I've said will inspire you in your journey. And I'm looking forward to hearing your success stories as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Glad to have the privilege to do this.
Yes, sir. Have a nice day.
You too.